Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I'm going to be talking about Penta Melding, as that is a term that I've been throwing around here or there in the last few videos, but I never actually explained how it is, what it is, all of that good stuff. So in today's video, I'm basically going to be explaining everything that you need to know about Penta Melding. So first of all, what is Penta Melding? Well, very simple. It is going to be putting 5 materia on a piece of gear. There are two requirements for this. First of all, it needs to be on a crafted piece of gear. So as you can see, if I go over to my gunbreaker, you cannot put 5 materia on raid gear or tombstone gear. It only works on crafted gear. And the second thing is that you will need to have a crafter leveled for this as well. Now, I know in the past you needed to have pretty much all of your crafters leveled if you wanted to pentamelt all of your gear, because for example a weaver could only pentamelt weaver specific gear. I do think that they changed this in a recent patch, so let me know in the comments down below whether or not that is still correct, because I'm not 100% certain on this. But basically those are going to be the requirements. You need to have a crafter leveled and you need to do it on crafted gear, which is why crafted gear at the start of a new raid tier is so incredibly strong, because not only is it going to give you a 10 item level increase, like for example all of this gear is item level 500, when the new crafted gear comes out they will all be 510, but on top of that you will also be able to put 5 materia into all of that gear, whereas you can only put 2 materias into your old gear, so you'll also be getting a very big substat increase. If you're here to come to know whether or not you should invest in pentamelded crafted gear because it is fairly expensive, if you cannot craft it yourself, if you do not have a bunch of materia lying around, then yes, get it if you're planning on clearing the whole tier in the first week or two. No, don't get it if you're planning on going at a more casual or mid-core pace where you will not set foot in the 3rd or the 4th fight by like week 4 or week 5. Then pentamelded crafted gear is definitely going to be overkill, as a lot of those pieces will be replaced by tombstone gear as well as savage gear from, for example, the 1st and the 2nd fight. Of course, if you have the resources, you want to be the strongest you can be to help out your team or to go into Party Finder or something like that, you can always do it if you want to do it. Just don't feel like you are obligated to get pentamelded crafted gear if you are a more casual player or even a mid-core player, because this is really only for the semi-hardcore or the full-on hardcore groups that are looking to clear as fast as possible, more specifically week 1, week 2. Outside of that, this isn't necessarily all that necessary. When it comes down to crafters, I do like to pentamelt my crafted gear. When it comes down to gatherers, I do not care about it too much. With my crafters, it's mainly there so that I can make my own gear, so that I don't need to rely on other people to make it for me. But outside of this, I will only pentamelt one set of gear when it comes down to savage progression, and that is basically going to be it. Now, as for how all of this works, it is relatively simple as well. The blue materia that you can see in here are your guaranteed slots. The red ones are your forbidden slots, or your overmelts as they're also called, which means that you can't request these at an NPC. So the blue slots you can always request at an NPC if you don't have crafters leveled yourself. If you want to melt the rest, the red ones, those you will have to do yourself, which is why you need those crafters leveled as well, because a normal NPC will not be able to do these for you. When it comes down to a belt as well as the accessories, as you can see over here, they will also be able to be pentamelded. It's just that they will need 4 forbidden melts instead of the normal 3 that you will have on your other pieces of gear. Now, the way overmelding works is that it is basically going to be a percentage success chance. I'm going to go over to my gatherer right here and, for example, go to my headpiece. So if I want to, say, for example, get more GP into this piece, I can select GP 7, and then you can see it has a 17% chance of success. And then if I try to meld it, of course, it will only have a 17% chance. Now, as you can also see, the maximum GP that I can put in here is 8, because you can always check the available materia enhancements down here. So basically, if I want to put in a grade 8, which is going to give me 9 GP, then you can see that it is going to say that the level is too high and that this will not give the full benefit of the materia that I am trying to put in here. Of course, if you want to like maximize your slot efficiency, so to speak, you might have to do this here or there. Like for example, if I go back to my crafter, you can see that I have 2 CP5 melts in here, so these aren't fully utilized, but still it was the most efficient to do, because otherwise I would only get 4 CP, for example, if I were to use a lower quality materia. Now, if you want to plan out your entire thing with pentamelding your stuff, how many materia you would need, basically get as many as you can, like getting 300 or 400 materia. It's quite normal if you want to try and do all of this stuff, but I'm going to open up a website right here real quick. This is Ariala. as you can see over here, ffxiv.ariala.com. Where you can basically plan out all of your gear and also your melts. So when it comes down to Penta Melding, what I would recommend is first you melt all of your guaranteed slots, and then you take it one slot at a time on all of your pieces of gear. So you put one overmelt in the weapon, one overmelt in the headpiece, one overmelt in the gloves, etc. until you're basically done, because that way you're gonna be able to be the most efficient, because the further you go down the list in your materia slots, the lower the chance of success is going to be. But the lower you go in quality of materia, the higher your success chance will be as well. So I'm going to showcase that real quick over here. I'm going to put in 2 grade 8 direct hits, for example. So as you can see, these are my guaranteed slots, 100% chance. But then when it comes down to your overmelding, this is where things become a little bit more interesting. So for your very first overmelt slot, you can still put in a grade 8 materia. So I'll just do that real quick over here. As you can see, 17%. But then once we go down that list, so your second overmelt slot, you can't put a grade 8 in there anymore. As you can see, 0%. So this is where we're gonna switch to grade 7s, and then 2 grade 7s will basically round out your piece of gear, and this is the strongest that you can make your gear as well. If I were to, for example, go down the list and go to a belt, as you can see over here, I'll be able to put in 1 grade 8 in the guaranteed, 1 grade 8 in the overmelt slot, and then of course the rest should all be grade 7s. This is the strongest you can make your pieces of gear. Of course, I do know that not everyone is going to have access to all of these materials, and if you're somebody that still wants to try to overmelt your pieces of gear, but you don't want to also completely bankrupt yourself in the game, what you can do is cheap out. And I'll just go and use this piece of gear as another example real quick. Because the thing that you need to know is that grade 6s are going to act the same as grade 8s, and grade 5s are going to act the same as grade 7s when it comes down to what you can do with them, and when it comes down to what percentage chance that they will grant you. So for example, when it comes down to our first overmelt slot, as I mentioned before, you can put in a grade 8, but you could also put in a grade 6 instead, because this is going to be a lot cheaper if you want to buy this from the market board, or if you still have some lying around. As you can see, same percent chance as if it was to be a grade 8, because this 17% chance does not change, but the materia itself is going to be cheaper to acquire. When it comes down to the rest of your overmelt slots, this is where we're going to do the same. So for example, you use your grade 7s until you run out. Once you run out of grade 7s, you can use a grade 5. Again, look at the 10% chance, this stays the same. But then say you run out of grade 5s and you only have grade 4s left, for example, you can put in some grade 4s, and these will also have a very high chance. Like for example, if I were to change these to a grade 5, you can see that the chances are very low, but then if we put it as a grade 4, you can see that the chance is going to be a lot higher than if I wanted to put in a grade 5 or a grade 7. So this is why I recommend you, if you're going to overmelt, first use your expensive materia on the very first slots. So the first slot should be a grade 6 or a grade 8. As you go down from there, try your grade 7s. Once you run out of grade 7s, use grade 5s. Once you run out of grade 5s, use grade 4s, and then you can just go down the list like that as well, as those will grant you a higher percent chance on these lower slots, because the lower slots normally have a very low percent chance for you to work. So that's kind of how Penta Melding works. Take it all pieces at a time, but one overmelt slot at a time. Your first overmelt slot is still going to be a grade 6 or a grade 8. The rest is all going to be grade 5, grade 7, or lower. Grade 6, grade 8 act the same, grade 5, grade 7 act the same as well in how they work, and then hopefully you can pentameld your whole gear and it will work out like that. Again, if you have material that are not going to be fully utilized, they will show up in red whilst you're trying to meld it, and you'll also get that little notification where it says that it will not grant you the full potential of the materia over here. It's in the red, and then it will also say you the success chance when you are trying to meld it yourself. So that's pretty much how overmelding works. If you have any more questions about it, feel free to leave them in the comments down below and I'll definitely get back to you. But on that note, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.